going to talk about the Marshall AR-DM61 Advanced Audio Monitor. So what makes it so advanced? Well, actually there are several things. I'm going to start with one of the more basic things, and that is that we find these kinds of audio monitors often in equipment rooms and large server rooms and back in the rack somewhere. These areas are often extremely noisy, and there are many audio monitors out there that just can't cut the mustard. You can't hear them in these rooms. So we also have a conflicting thing in there, and that is that the rack space is very limited in these places. So our goal was to come up with a 1 rack unit high audio monitor that could compete with 2 rack unit high units, loud ones. So let's take a look at this. This thing can certainly do this, and it packs a lot of punch out of a 1 rack unit monitor. That's certainly not the most important feature of this, but it does solve a problem, and that's what this monitor is about. We wanted it to solve problems for people. Let's take a look now at the unit itself. Well, our second design criteria on this product was to combine a lot of power, but to keep the operation as simple as we possibly could. So as you'll look through it here, you'll see there's only 1 knob, 1 button down here, which is mute. Everything else is done through a touch screen, which also doubles as a video player when you're in SDI mode. So let's take a look here. This is the business end down here, and there's the metering and the display. Since it is touchscreen, it's obviously menu driven. There's no fiddly up-down switches, things like that. The goal here was to keep everything in 1 or at most 2 layers. That's it. So that you can get to everything really fast. Now, today's broadcast facilities, we find that we don't ever get rid of an interface. We keep them around for a while. So we took that in mind and we said, well, we're going to keep analog in here, 8 channels in and out, AES, uncompressed, digital, 8 channels in and out, 2 SDIs carrying 16 bits, and the optional, well, the other model here, it also has Dante. The SDIs can also double as MADI inputs. I don't have MADI here, so I just have to explain that if you connect MADI to the BNC input here for SDI 1 or 2, this label will change over and say MADI 1 or MADI 2, so you'll know you have MADI there instead. Now, MADI can carry up to 64 channels of audio. These things are still around in our facilities. So what we didn't want to do is create a unit that would only do the more modern interfaces and require a second unit. This one here can do it all in 1 box. Now let's see how we run this thing. Again, now I'm monitoring SDI. I have some racing footage here that was captured with our Marshall cameras. So here we're looking at the vertical display mode, and we see that we just have 2 channels of audio here, and we can meter it and so on. That's another design criteria that we came up with here, and that was to not limit the way you can monitor your audio, the way you can meter it. So here we have vertical displays, which are obviously very short, but you can see the whole world here. I can see all 16 channels, and no problem here. So if I'm missing channels, like I am here, you can tell that real quickly. But what if I want to see these in higher precision? Do I have to go to a different monitor? Or what if I just press on the audio bars and bingo, there you have it. 2 channels, 96-step accuracy. I can scroll to the next pair of channels just by dialing them up. Or if I want, I can go back here to home and just simply pick the next group, and now I'm monitoring the next group. Actually, I'm not there. Now I am. So we go back to home here. Home always brings you back to channel 1 and 2, stereo mode in whatever format you're in at the moment. Pretty slick. Let's look at another interesting mode. Down here we have 3 choices. Mono, which means I'm only going to listen to one channel, single channel. Here, whatever I'm monitoring, that's what I'm listening to. So here I would only be hearing the left channel, or channel 1. I can press here, hear the second channel, and so on, and pick one channel at a time. If I press stereo, this channel will go to the left speaker and this will go to the right speaker. I can scroll down and pick any pair I want. LRC is left, right, center. This channel will go to the left speaker, this one to the right, and this one will be both, come out of both, simulating a center channel. So let's go back and look at stereo, my favorite, one of my favorite modes here. In this mode, we had requests from customers who said, well, I don't operate a stereo plant. I have music here, and I have multiple channels, multiple languages. Let's start that over. What I have is maybe music here and multiple languages on these tracks. How can I listen to these and pair them and hear them together? We came up with a cool way where you don't have to go into a menu at all. If I press the meter, I dropped that channel out. I press this meter and I've added that channel. If I want to keep going, I can build a real quick on-the-fly mix, accumulating channels in any group of 8 channels. Press down here on this row and I'm back in stereo mode. So nothing to page into, nothing to dig around in. It's all right there. So we'll go back to home. Let's look at some of the other inputs here. If I go to menus, I can select, again, I can select my SDI inputs, my AS, analog. If we go to analog, there's only 8 channels there, so the display is quite compressed here. And there's, of course, no video. A little bit of word about the analog. The analog is in and out. What does that mean? Well, if I'm back here in, let's say, SDI again, this group of 8 will be exiting the analog output and the AS output right now. If I punch something over here, I would get the if I select, let's say this group down here, I would be hearing 8 channels out from this group. Same holds for AS and for analog. You get 8 channels in and out. So that can be used for remote monitoring. It can be used for a variety of things. It could be used as a converter. So you could come in one thing and come out AES or analog. Take another look here. Let's go back and say, well, AES looks a whole lot like the analog mode. Very condensed 8 channels. Let's go look at Dante. Maddie will appear the same way. This gets really intense. 64 channels all the way across. So this is your world view again. You can see everything in your world on one display all at one time, 64 channels. However, I can do the same trick with horizontal and vertical display, and I can also pick stereo mode. Everything on here works the same way. It doesn't have a different personality if it's in Dante mode, for instance, or MADI. It's all the same. So here we are again, stereo mode. I can do the same thing. I can drop out tracks, add tracks. Again, I'm working in an octet. And here, since Dante has up to 64 channels in this machine, I can pick any group of 16 quite easily right here. And there. Right there, there. I can pick any group of 16 very quickly. So let's talk about the models here real quick. We have two basic models. We have the AR-DM61 BT, broadcast technology. It comes standard with analog, AES, two SDIs, MADI, all there. You can add a Dolby decoder card, and it will then show you Dolby symbols right here over these, tell you which ones are compressed, and you pick it and it will decode 8 channels. All right, we're looking at the Dante mode, which, as I mentioned, also would be the same display if we were in MADI mode. You could get all 64 channels. Your world view, if you want to break it down to 16 channels, just pick one of these choices here. I like stereo. There's 16 channels, and real easy, step into the next group of 16. Quite easy. I don't have to click switches up and down. I do not have to dig down another menu layer, and so on. So we also have, let's go back to SDI. We also have the ability to average LKFS or LUFS style. This is not fancy. This is very basic. Whatever current mix you have is going to do this here. It's going to give you a scale, and you'll be able to see where you're running. And we do have a mix button here, and I have to explain that. That one is based upon settings made through a web GUI. And we'll show you that in just a moment. So if I were to press mix, I would get my pre-made mix for the mode I'm currently in. You can create mixes for each of these modes. If I go back to home, here I undo the mix. The mix applies only to what you hear on the speakers. It does not change what goes out the AES or analog outs. So let's talk about, now we are going to go down a level. We have tabs down here, and I'm going to go, how do I get to our web GUI? Hard to see this with this fisheye camera here, but it says go to your browser, enter the IP address. Well, if this thing is sitting on a network like it is right now, it will get a network address, and you type that in, including the port number down here at the end, :5000 there. That's assuming DHCP mode or auto address mode. If, however, you're plugging this in for the first time somewhere and you need a fixed IP address, we have two presets here built in. If you press one of these, the unit will reboot and come up with a new address in one of these types here. And then you can access it directly with a fixed address, assuming you don't have this address operating in your facility, and get to it, and then with the web browser, change the address to what you really want. So that's a little quick shortcut to get in. Going to now show you the web browser. All right, this is the user interface, the web interface, excuse me. This is the web interface for the AR-DM61. All I had to do was type the number that appeared on the front panel of the unit in here, the address and the port number there with a colon, and hit enter. And this happens to be Chrome I'm using, but it doesn't really matter. It works with just about every browser. This button here lets you rename or put names on the inputs. So you could name one Studio 1 left and right. You could have this one be Remote 5 or whatever you want. Let's get back to here. Mix button gets a little more complex, but most of the time you don't need it. The front panel has a mix button, as we saw. When you press that mix button, you're picking up the mix you have created here or here or here. They're for each type of input, including Dante. That mix is applied to the speakers, not to the line out. This is just for the speakers. And you can assign left, right, center, off, very easy, or you can pick up some preset mixes, things like that. Let's go back here. IP setup, just like most other products out there, you can pick fixed or DHCP mode. If you're in fixed mode, you have to type in the IP address, the gateway, and the net mask, and hit AR-DM, update AR-DM, and you are updated. It will wake back up in 30 or 40 seconds. Touchscreen calibration, rarely needed. That's really for if the monitor's located in an unusual location and visually your finger does not appear to line up with the buttons, you can recalibrate the screen. Status, that's just voltages and temperatures for troubleshooting. And update, very simple, choose a file, click update firmware, click OK, and in about 2 minutes the unit will reboot and be updated. So that's it. That's a quick tour through the web browser interface. All right, let's review real quick the models available here for the AR-DM61. The base model, AR-DM61BT, comes standard with 8 channels of analog in and out, 8 channels of AES in and out, 2 SDI inputs with supporting 16 channels of audio each, and MADI supporting 64 channels using the SDI inputs. That's all standard equipment. You can add a Dolby decoder, and that will decode Dolby wherever it finds it in here and would display it over these things. So the next model up is the AR-DM61BT. DT is in Dante technology. That comes complete with a Dante system on board. It can also receive a Dolby card and decode Dolby from all the things. You do not lose anything to move to the Dante module. The model, you keep everything it had in the base model. So right now I am running Dante in here, and we implement the full chipset, and so therefore Dante nowadays can also interface AES67, and it can get you into ST2110 networks as well. So here we are running Dante. As you can see, I've set it up. I'm actually simulating from my computer using the Dante virtual sound card to provide the motion here.